Troublemaker does not forget.
If you've been keeping an eye on the Alita fandom lately, you've probably noticed that a bunch of fans are once again asking whether the world of Alita Battle Angel is still worth revisiting and expanding, and if the long wait for a sequel will eventually pay off. Because there's been so much speculation, new comments, and renewed hope floating around, it feels like the perfect moment to break everything down. So, let's take a long, steady dive into what we actually know about Alita Battle Angel 2, especially now that Rosa Salazar herself has added some fresh fuel to the fire with her latest hints. Rosa Salazar, who brought Alita to life in the 2019 sci-fi film directed by Robert Rodriguez and produced and co-written by James Cameron, has just shared a surprisingly encouraging update about the sequel. Even though the first movie didn't blow up the global box office the way big-budget sci-fi often does, it still became something special because the fan response was overwhelmingly positive. That enthusiasm built a loyal following that has refused to let the sequel conversation fade away. But for all that passion, the green light from the studio has remained stubbornly out of reach, which is why every new comment from the cast or creative team means a lot of fans. During a recent appearance on Collider's Ladies' Night interview series, Salazar made it clear she's still holding on to hope for Alita 2. She said, "I'm always bringing up Alita," and added that it still might happen. She also circled back to James Cameron as one of the main reasons she hasn't given up, jokingly saying he's got the set, as if the whole production is just waiting for the right moment. But she didn't stop there. When the hosts talked about wanting more sequels, Salazar matched their energy and said she feels the same way, even comparing herself to the bots online that constantly push for updates because her enthusiasm hasn't faded at all. Her interest in returning to the franchise is deeply personal, partly because she had such a positive experience making the first one. She described the process as the best, crediting the partnership between Cameron and Rodriguez as something she genuinely loved. "They're two friends creating something together," she said, and that gave the entire project a feeling of passion and care. She highlighted the incredible script, the team at Weta, and the thousands of people working across departments to make the movie happen. And although the film involved a massive amount of technology and artistry, she said everything ultimately came down to the emotional moments between characters. For her, that type of collaborative experience, especially on such a big scale, is rare and inspiring, and it's a major reason she wants to step back into Alita's world. But Salazar didn't just act in Alita, she invested creatively in the future of the franchise. Before joining the project, she had appeared in films like Insurgent and the Maze Runner sequels, although she wasn't the lead in those stories. So when Alita Battle Angel put her at the center, it felt validating for a moment, but then extremely nerve-wracking because of the responsibility. Even so, she quickly found confidence during her final audition with Rodriguez, where she felt they fully aligned on who Alita was at her core. From that point on, she said, it was smooth sailing. That deep connection led her to do something unexpected. She wrote her own treatment for Alita 2 right after the first movie was released. She even sent it to James Cameron, who responded by calling it "so cool." She also admitted it probably wouldn't be the version that gets filmed someday, but she couldn't help writing it because she had become such an avid fan of the original manga. For her, building out Alita's world was irresistible. Of course, fans still wonder why there hasn't been more official progress. One major reason for the slow movement comes from the top. James Cameron and Robert Rodriguez both want to make Alita 2, and they even joked in 2022 that they'd taken a blood oath to return to the franchise. The real holdup appears to be on the studio side. Producing another Alita film would be expensive, especially with the scale of effects and world building involved, and the first movie's box office results weren't strong enough to automatically guarantee more films. Hollywood studios tend to be cautious, and the financial risk has made them hesitate. Another factor is whether the original stars could return. Actors like Mahershala Ali and Edward Norton are in high demand, and scheduling them for a major effects-heavy sci-fi sequel could be tricky. Even though Ali's character met his end, Norton's Nova was clearly being set up for a much larger role in future films. Still, the fanbase hasn't retreated. The Alita Army continues to thrive online, keeping the franchise alive through steady support, trending campaigns, and constant reminders that audiences want more. The film has a strong audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, and since its release, it's been rediscovered by streaming audiences who didn't catch it in theaters. Because of that enduring interest, the idea of a sequel still feels viable, especially since Salazar, Rodriguez, and Cameron all continue to advocate for it. When Alita Battle Angel first landed in theaters back in 2019, it quickly picked up a committed fanbase. Even though critics were split, many viewers were hypnotized by its sweeping visuals, high-energy fights, and Salazar's heartfelt performance as a cyborg who was both innocent and formidable. The film ended with a cliffhanger that practically begged for a continuation, setting up new revelations about Alita's past, her connection to Salem, and her role in a much bigger rebellion. But even though it was built to launch a series, the sequel has been stuck in limbo for 5 years. One of the biggest reasons for the delay comes down to James Cameron's impossible schedule. Because he's deeply committed to the Avatar franchise, which includes multiple upcoming films all in different stages of development, he's essentially buried in Pandora. Cameron's style involves intense oversight, cutting-edge technology, and massive multi-year commitments for each project. Even though Rodriguez directed Alita, Cameron was a crucial part of shaping its story, tone, and world, so the sequel needs his attention to maintain that consistency. With him fully focused on Avatar 3, 4, and 5, Alita ends up waiting in line. But despite that long delay, the world of Alita still feels incredibly worth returning to because it's filled with rich possibilities. The first film was designed to set up a larger narrative, and the storylines involving Salem, Nova, and Alita's lost memories were only scratched on the surface. Salazar's motion capture performance remains one of the film's strongest assets, and advances in visual effects since 2019 could enhance Alita's world even more. Both the Scrapyard and Salem have plenty of unexplored layers, and Kishiro's original manga spans far beyond what the movie covered. Thematically, the story still has a lot left to say. Concepts like identity, humanity, inequality, and resilience shaped the first film, although it only began to dip into those ideas. A sequel could push further into Alita's past as a warrior, the political tension between the cities, and the true nature of Nova's control. And since Rodriguez and Cameron always imagined Alita as a trilogy, the story structure is already there. So now, the question becomes whether the long wait for Alita Battle Angel 2 will ultimately be worth it. Even though the first movie didn't start strong at the box office, it gained momentum afterward through streaming and home release. The fanbase has only grown more passionate, which could translate into stronger support for a sequel. In a way, the long break might work in the film's favor because nostalgia has had time to grow, and sci-fi audiences often rally behind stories they feel were overlooked. Still, Hollywood timing is everything. As Cameron gradually delegates some responsibilities on future Avatar entries, there's a chance he might finally have space to revisit Iron City. Rodriguez can absolutely steer the film creatively, but Cameron's involvement is still essential when it comes to securing the budget and studio confidence needed for a project of this scale. Since the rights belong to Disney, the studio would have to prioritize Alita, and Cameron's name carries the power to make that happen. In the end, even though the wait has been long, the possibility of an Alita Battle Angel sequel remains alive because the passion behind it hasn't faded. Fans still want it, the cast is still invested, and the creative team hasn't given up. So while the timeline is uncertain, the franchise continues to stand just one good opportunity away from being revived in the way fans have hoped for since 2019. And that's that for today's video. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next one.